So this is where we left off. We were converting from degrees to radians, radians to degrees. And, you know, again, I know that a lot of you are referring back to your unit circle, which is pretty natural at this point. But the ultimate goal is that we don't do that. Now, how are we ever going to pull that up? That is just a ton to memorize all that stuff. Don't do that. We don't want to memorize everything, but I do think it will be a good idea to be pretty fluid with the first quadrant. So in our notes, we're going to do this next section here. I'm going to blow this up and use this blank space to draw the first quadrant of the unit circle. And only the first quadrant. So, because I don't want to have to memorize all that stuff, but if I knew the 3 reference angles, then I could find the rest of them from those 3. So that first one, which it was 30 degrees, is pi over 6. It's 1/6. It's the smallest of our angles. The next one is pi over 4. And that one might be the easiest to remember because it's 1/4 of pi, which is half the circle, so pi over 4. And then the next one is pi over 3. And my coordinates at each of those places are at pi over 3, it's 1/2 and root 3 over 2. And at pi over 4, it's root 2 over 2 and root 2 over 2. And at pi over 6, it is root 3 over 2, 1/2. Now, I know that still is, a few things to memorize, but it's a heck of a lot easier than the entire unit circle. And hopefully if we think some of them through, like pi over 4, again, being, 1/4 of that half a circle is not so bad to remember. And then if you could just remember that pi over 6 is smaller than pi over 3, hopefully those two fall in line. And when we're talking about the coordinates, this one usually is the first one that students are able to memorize because it's, the same thing, right? But it's not all that uncommon to screw up these two. However, if you remember from when you write your fractions, like the top left is the first number you write. Those numbers go 1, 2, 3. So if you can remember that they're as easy as 1, 2, 3, then hopefully the rest will fall into line. All right, now I'm going to refer back to that as I'm doing this next part here. So if I want to find the sine of 3 pi over 4, remember in the unit circle, 2 pi is all the way around the circle. And 1 pi is halfway around the circle. So I look at 3 pi over 4, well, 3/4 is less than 1. So if it's less than 1, and it's more than 1/4, that's going to put me there in the second quadrant. So I know I am in quadrant 2. And how much less than pi is 3 pi over 4? So now we're talking fractions here. I know it's a scary thing, but we're pi over 4 less than pi. Because pi would be like 4 over 4, right? So we're pi over 4 less than that. That is our reference angle. Oh, I'm sorry, we're looking for the exact value. My mistake, not the reference angle. I do want to know that the reference angle is pi over 4, because now I'm thinking sine, is sine the x or the y value? Y value, good. So I've got the y value. Reference angle is pi over 4, so it's this guy. but it's in the second quadrant, so it's going to stay positive. So it's still root 2 over 2. So the sine of 3 pi over 4 is root 2 over 2. Just like we were doing before in degrees, we're now doing the same thing, but our angle measure is in radians. So if I want to find the sine of 7 pi over 4. All right, first I have to figure out 7 over 4. 7 over 4 is more than 1, but less than 2. So it's more than 1 pi, but less than 2 pi. How much less than 2 pi? Well, 2 would be 8 over 4, so it's pi over 4 less than that. So I am in the fourth quadrant. My reference angle is pi over 4, okay, because pi over 4 less than 2 pi. The sine is the y value. So it's this guy, but in the fourth quadrant, which is going to make it negative. So the sine of 7 pi over 4 is negative root 2 over 2. So some of you are going to love that, some of you are going to hate it, because there's a lot of mental work, right? It's a lot to do in your head, but not a lot of writing. Some students love that, some students hate it. Everybody's a little different, okay? Do the next one, cosine of pi over 6. Well, pi over 6, that's one of our reference angles. That's in the first quadrant. Cosine is the x value. And so the cosine of pi over 6 would be root 3 over 2. So we are in the first quadrant. The cosine is root 3 over 2. All right, any questions yet before I do the tangents? All right, so to do the tangent, 5 pi over 4. Well, that is 5 over 4 is more than 1. So I know it's more than half the circle. It's less than 2, of course. How much more than 1 is it? It's pi over 4 less than 1. Because 5 over 4 would be, 4 over 4 would be 1 pi. So that's pi over 4 more than that. So that means that pi over 4 is my reference angle. But I'm down here in the third quadrant, which makes both of these values negative. So I am in the third quadrant. And I have a sine value is negative root 2 over 2. And the cosine is negative root 2 over 2. That's the y over the x. When you divide those, you get positive 1. So the tangent of 5 pi over 4 is positive 1. Yes? Why are they negative? Yeah. So they're negative because 5 over 4 is more than 1, which puts us in the third quadrant. And in the third quadrant, the tangent is sine over cosine. The sine is negative in the third quadrant because it's the y value. And the cosine is negative because it's the x value. So because of the quadrant, they are both negative. And a negative divided by negative, of course, is positive. Yeah, so there is a lot of mental work. So if I'm going too quickly, please, I'll slow down. Just let me know. Any other questions? That was a good one. All right, let's take a look at the next section here, where we are now trying to find the angle measure. We're trying to find the angle where the sine of theta is 1/2. We did this before, but we did it in degrees. If you look at the question, it wants our answer somewhere between 0 and 2 pi. That means radians. So we want our answer to be in radians, not in degrees. So where is the sine equal to 1/2? I know that the sine is the y value. I'm going to look up here. If I knew my first quadrant, I know that that's going to be one of my answers, because the y value is 1/2, meaning pi over 6 is my answer. But the sine is also positive here in the second quadrant. So I need pi over 6 in the second quadrant, which is 5 pi over 6. How did I get 5 over 6? Well, I know 6 over 6 is 1 pi. So it would be pi over 6 less than 1 pi. So 6 over 6 minus 1 over 6 would be 5 pi over 6. So we're doing some, fraction work here as well. So the sine of theta is equal to 1/2 at pi over 6. So I'll say theta equals pi over 6 and 5 pi over 6. All right, I'll work downward here. I'll do the cosine of theta is equal to -1/2. So cosine is the x value. So I want to know, where are the x values -1/2? Well, I know it's +1/2 right here. So I need to be, an x value is negative in the second and third quadrants. So I have a reference angle of pi over 3, but I want to be in the second and third quadrants. So my reference angle is pi over 3. Then this is 2 pi over 3. Because 1 pi would be 3 over 3 minus pi over 3 would be 2 pi over 3. And this guy would be 4 pi over 3. Because 3 over 3 plus pi over 3 would be 4 pi over 3. So my two answers are 2 pi over 3 and 4 pi over 3. So we definitely have to figure out what quadrant we're in, whether we're talking X or Y values there. All right, would you guys take a minute to do those two? And we'll go over those together in just a minute. Okay, I'll go over these. Like I said, I have that first answer up there. We're definitely getting in our fraction work here. So for this one, I want to know, when is the X value √3/2, positive √3/2. So I look up at the unit circle, and my X value is positive √3/2 here at pi over 6, but it also would be down here in the fourth quadrant. So what is that angle in the fourth quadrant? It is 11 pi over 6. Because all the way around is 2 pi, which would be 12 over 6. And 12 over 6 minus pi over 6 is 11 pi over 6. So our two answers are, again, pi over 6 and 11 pi over 6. All right, to find out, there is a delta max homework. Okay. Yeah. When is the y value -1/2? So I'll go back to my unit circle. My y value is +1/2 here at pi over 6. I want it to be negative. Since it's a y value, that would have to be in the third quadrant and in the fourth quadrant. Okay, because it's a y value, it's going to be negative in the third and the fourth quadrant. I know pi over 6 is my reference angle. So if I did 1 pi, which is 6 over 6, plus another pi over 6, that would be 7 pi over 6. Then to get my angle in the fourth quadrant, I know that 2 pi is 12 over 6. And if I did 12 over 6 minus 1 over 6, I get 11 pi over 6. So my answers are 7 pi over 6 and 11 pi over 6. So theta is 7 pi over 6 and 11 pi over 6. All right, any questions on those two? You do okay on those? All right, so I'll do a couple of tangents here. So how about where the tangent is -1? All right, well, tangent, remember, is sine over cosine. And so I know if the sine and cosine are the same, it would be 1. So I'm looking for a reference angle of pi over 4. Because at pi over 4, the tangent is equal to 1. Or I should say the tangent of pi over 4 is equal to 1. Because it's root 2 over 2 divided by itself. Remember, the question was saying, where is it -1? Well, it's negative in the second and fourth quadrants. And those values, the second quadrant would be at 3 pi over 4. Okay, because half the circle would be 4 over 4 minus pi over 4 is 3 pi over 4. And the one in the fourth quadrant is 7 pi over 4, because it's 8 over 4 minus pi over 4 would be 7 pi over 4. So again, my two answers are at 3 pi over 4 and 7 pi over 4. All right, I'll do the undefined one. So where would the tangent be undefined? Well, remember, tangent is sine over cosine, right? And so if I have sine over cosine, and I know that it's a big no-no to divide by 0, wherever the cosine is equal to 0, the tangent is undefined. So I'm wondering, where is the cosine equal to 0? Remember, cosine is the x. The x value is equal to 0 here and here. Okay, x values are equal to 0 at straight up and straight down, which are pi over 4. I'm sorry, we'll scratch that. Pi over 2, I'm sorry, because it's half pi, right? It's half of this. Pi over 2 and 3 pi over 2. So the tangent is undefined. The tangent of theta is undefined when theta is pi over 2 or 3 pi over 2. Because again, that's when the cosine is equal to 0. All right, so I know not a lot of writing for our notes, but a lot of brain power trying to piece all that stuff together. Any questions, guys?